Welcome back to First Dollar Academy. I'm your host, Jeremy Mohue. This podcast is all about demystifying the world of business for new and aspiring entrepreneurs. Today, we're diving into the fascinating story of Sara Doutt, the founder and CEO of Myngly. Sara is a self-described introvert who wanted to make meeting people in her industry a bit easier and decided to solve her own problem. It didn't take long for Sara to realize her solution could help a broad set of people. Sara's story is a masterclass in perseverance and adaptability. Get ready for some eye-opening insights on community building, user feedback, and the art of finding the right partners to start your business. Let's get started. Well, Sara Doutt, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I can't thank you enough for joining me. I know that you have a crazy busy schedule, so I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I definitely want to get a lot of your knowledge from these last couple of years you've been building this app. But before we get there, could you talk a little bit about yourself and introduce yourself to people who don't know you?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Sara Doutt, founder and CEO of Myngly. Basically, you can think of it like a GPS for your professional life or a real-time LinkedIn. It leads you and guides you in real time, in real life, to your professional connections, both at events and on the app. And so I'm originally from upstate New York and lived there till I was about 10 years old. Always had that entrepreneurial spirit from lemonade stands, garage sales, anything that I could do to make money. And then actually moved to East Texas. Like I said, when I was 10, played sports my whole life. Learned a lot through sports. That's where I got my competitive nature from. Resiliency, all those things, and went off to play soccer at Xavier University in Cincinnati, Ohio. And actually had a fifth year to play because I injured my foot while there, my sophomore year. And so got my undergrad degree from Xavier University in finance, and then went off and got my MBA from University of Cincinnati in Ohio as well. And while I was at UC, I got that entrepreneurial bug again. There was, in grad school, it's great for, the people that you meet, the networking. And so there was this Cincinnati Innovates competition. And like I said, I love competition. I'm very competitive. And so I actually had an app idea back then, and me and my partner at that time, we won and got the $10,000, award. But at the time, Apple had a closed operating system, and the app idea that we had needed an open operating system. Plus, back then I wasn't financially secure, obviously, and younger, and probably wouldn't even pursued it anyways. So it might have been a blessing that we weren't able to proceed. So then I moved back to Dallas and started my finance career in private banking.
Well, I do want to know, young Sara, lemonade stand. When you kind of put these things out, what were you doing with the money after you made
Young Sara and today's Sara is very similar. Putting it in a piggy bank, trying to find ways to make it grow even more and more.
For sure.
Yeah.
And then, you obviously kind of had that bug early on, and then obviously you started playing soccer. At any point, as you were kind of looking at schools, did that even really cross your mind, or were you really just focused on like, I want to just be an athlete? And,
yeah.
Kind of
yeah. The answer is truthfully just looking to be, an athlete, playing soccer, finding the best place where I could do that. So yeah, that's.
No worries. Yeah. And so I guess, you go and you experience the wealth of college, and you hurt yourself, and I really want to kind of cool it, because I'm sure at that particular point, that's when it became real for you, when it comes to like life, right? So like you're like, okay, maybe I wanted to become a professional athlete, maybe I wanted to do all these different things, but now I have to kind of maybe consider other things that I wanted to do.
Yep.
During that time, you were kind of rehabbing and all that stuff. Were you looking at different things to try to like figure out the direction you want to go, or?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's where I really learned leadership skills because, you know, when I was rehabbing, you know, I wasn't able to travel with the team. You know, you're stuck back on campus, you know, in the training room, doing all the rehab, and it was at that point that I gathered kind of all the players that weren't able to travel, and we would volunteer. So, you know, I remember on Make a Difference Day in Ohio, I got together a group of our players, and we went and we planted trees and flowers in a part of town that wasn't so beautiful, right? And so I think, yeah, I learned a lot about, you know, leadership. Also, you know, there is life outside of sports. At that time, though, you know, I was hopeful that I'd be able to rehab and get back out there and play. You know, turns out I was never really the same player after that. And, you know, although I did go on to play another year at Xavier and then my 5th year at University of Cincinnati, you know, it was pretty eye-opening that I needed to kind of figure out what to do besides, you know, after I graduate outside of soccer.
And I guess during that time, it's a really like, you know, time for discovery, right?
Yeah.
So as you are kind of looking at the things that you want to do, you know, banking comes across your mind. And you mentioned actually, you know, before we started recording how difficult the landscape was at that time.
Right.
We've just gone through the financial crisis, and you know, no one could get a job at that particular time. I'm sure that had an impact on you. And tell me a little bit, like, how you made that jump, how you found the job, and like, you know, how you felt when you got it.
Right. So I remember, you know, my MBA program was a 15-month full-time program. It left the summer interim open for an internship, and luckily my kind of career services person was really helpful in kind of helping me navigate, you know, internships, and they had connections with some people. But I remember getting a ton of no's. I mean, no after no after no. And for me, it was like a double-edged sword because, you know, I had no experience in the real world, but I had my MBA. And so you had people that would say, oh, no, you're overqualified because you have an MBA. But then you'd have other people that would say you're underqualified because you don't have any experience. And so that was really, really tough. And but just, you know, kept interviewing, kept going, and luckily got an offer from JP Morgan back then. And I remember calling my dad and just saying, like, I can't believe it, like, because you know, it took a lot of no's to get this yes, but it was so worth it.
And so you get into banking, and you have such a unique perspective, right, as a business owner, because you know kind of what happens behind the wall that so many folks want to learn about and try to understand. When you started in banking, what was a shock to you? What was a surprise to you?
So many things. First of all, I didn't really know, like, you know, I didn't know what private banking was before I started in that. But, you know, in private banking, you work with wealthy individuals. They have a net worth 25 million or more, and you're helping them maintain and grow their wealth, give back to the community, and help them leave a legacy. And just seeing people with that amount of wealth was, I've never seen that before. I didn't come from that, you know, and to be honest, most people in that industry do come from that. And so I just remember, you know, being an analyst and wondering, why do these people need to borrow money? I don't get that. Like, they have so much money, why would they need to borrow money? And so yeah, there's a lot of things that were really eye-opening, and you know, honestly, something that I've seen is that none of them have created their wealth from, you know, a W-2. I mean, with the exception of, you know, some C-suites, but so that was a common theme that I've seen throughout.
So you get into banking, you're working there a couple of years, you're working with different types of clients, big pockets. Did you have an like aha moment for Myngly? Was there were you just like sitting on a couch one day and was like, oh my goodness? Or did it take like kind of, you know, months or years of kind of thinking through a problem that you wanted to solve?
So I think I did have an aha moment like back in 2018, 2019. And then after that aha moment, I just couldn't sleep at night. I just kept thinking about it. similar to like what I experienced back in college with that app idea back then. I had that same feeling with this idea, and actually sat on it for a couple years, right? And I guess didn't really sit on it. I did a lot of research, listened to a lot of, YouTube videos, tutorial, just trying to figure out like, what would I need to do to even get this off the ground? And then after bugging my partner for years, she's finally like, hey, you really need to start this and take the leap. And in 2021 we started development. So, but yeah, there was a lot that kind of went on between there where I almost gave up. Mainly because I couldn't find a developer that I could trust, afford, that had quality. And so, like I said, I started listening to these podcasts at masters.com. So if you ever are looking to start an app, highly recommend that. A guy named Steve P. Young, he talks about anything from like development. I don't know him, so I'm not like promoting him or anything, but he really helped me with a lot of things. So anything from development, data analysis, marketing your app. And I was listening to his podcast, and Haim, the CEO of a development company in Argentina, started to talk. And this guy knew what he was talking about. He seemed so smart. I then, went to his website, checked out his portfolio, and everything looked awesome. And so I'm like, okay, the last thing, can I afford this? And yeah, so it turned out, we started working together. He's actually our CTO now, and he's been him and Alex and the whole team have been amazing, and really helped me as a non-technical founder get to where we are today.
That's a lot, right? Because you come up with an idea, and that's the whole reason why I started this podcast.
Yeah.
Because so many people get stuck right there, right?
Right.
Trying to figure out where do I even go to learn. So thank you so much for the recommendation.
Yeah.
And I'll definitely link that when I post this episode. What was it about what you learned that gave you the confidence to even like start? Because a lot of the times people, maybe they'll learn something, but oftentimes they're like, okay, I don't know. Money is a big barrier. Time's a big barrier. You're working at a bank. You got a full-time job. So what like, kind of pushed you over the top to get started?
I don't know if it was anything that I learned or, saw on these tutorials or podcasts. I think it was more about like that nagging idea that I couldn't sleep at night after doing all this research, finding out there's nothing else out there like it, talking with our Texas Young Professionals. So I'm the president of Texas Young Professionals. We have over 100,000 members. We do these, monthly happy hours in across 5 different cities in Texas. And so talking with them and hearing, the problem that I was having is the same problem that they're having. And so when you have an idea, when you're solving a real problem, and you're able to kind of validate all of that, and you can't sleep at night, like, you should just go for it, right? And that's one of the advice that I would give to people is like, ideas, they don't always come fully formed. You just have to start, and you'll figure it out as you go. I highly encourage people to find a community of founders or people who have gone through this. Maybe it's mentors to help you navigate the challenges that you will face. That these people will help you navigate, give you support, give you advice, resources. And for me, that really was the deck. I'm trying to think of the acronym. What is it? Dallas Entrepreneurial Center, I believe. Uh-huh. Yeah. And Kendall and Emma from there, they honestly have been a blessing for us. That's how we got into Dallas Startup Week. They have a ton of great resources, including how we got into Google for Startups. So after we launched on the App Store in September of last year, in line with Dallas Startup Week last year, they sent over information on all these resources that we we should check out. And one of them was Google for Startups. So we applied and we got $100,000 from them. And that's really been a godsend because, like I said, being a non-technical founder, I would wake up to all these like fire drills every morning, like costs skyrocketing, right? Like server costs, cloud costs. And with Google, we have, they're covering all that, right, for a year. And also we have we have a direct line to someone that can actually help us optimize these costs. So yeah, that was a lot. But
no, that's really great information. I'm sure most people don't know about Google for Startups. I'm sure most people don't know about like how you're able to navigate this like kind of landscape as a non-technical founder.
Yeah.
The thing that I definitely want to kind of touch back on is something that you said, which is kind of around like, you know, like starting and figuring it out, and then ultimately like just talking with people and you know trying to solve a particular problem. Is there a number, or like who did you talk to, and perhaps it's someone that has built an app before, or perhaps getting into this program? Like, what was it that was like, we got it, I figured it out, this is something that I want to pursue? And you know, obviously you're not you know, doing it full time, but you're doing it. So like, what was the like, okay, this is an actual problem?
Well, like I said, just like getting out there and talking to your first best user, right? And for us, that's Texas young professionals. And just surveying them month after month and hearing the same problems over and over and over. So that's that. And then for me, like what made me kind of say, okay, let's go for this is, one, I found the development team that I could trust, that had quality and I could afford. And two was that I'm launching with a community. Because a lot of people think, when I was doing all that research, listening to all these stories, right? So I also listened to How I Built This by Guy Raz. I'm sure you have too. You remind me a lot of him, and your podcasts are like his, so that's really cool. I hear what they went through, and I try to learn from them. And a lot of people think, you know, oh, I'm going to develop this, I'm going to build this product, I'm going to put the storefront out, whatever it is, and people are going to come. But that doesn't happen. That's not reality. You really need to launch with a community, just like Facebook did with Harvard and Bumble did with USC, right? You've got to find that community, and for us, that's Texas Young Professionals. And now we are also working with a lot of universities and other kind of networking organizations. But just find that group of people that are going to be your first best user, and they're going to adopt it. Have them give you feedback early on. So we went through a private beta which was rough because, you know, private betas are rough, right? They're buggy, they don't work the way you want them to, but honestly, I wouldn't change it because we learned so much from that. And our TYP members gave us this feedback, and they felt like they were part of the journey because we would listen and we would adapt and we would implement. And, you know, they felt like I said, they were part of this and they wanted to continue to be part of it. And we listened to them.
That's awesome. That's awesome to hear.
Yeah.
And that really like kind of speaks, it's a testament to like, you know, how important a community is of people to give you support in the way that you need.
Yeah.
I'm sure your partner supports you in a different way than maybe a beta user would.
Yeah.
But it takes all the people around you to like really kind of continue on and push forward. So I'm so curious to hear about like when you first got Myngly up. So really quickly for those who don't know, you know, why you specifically had this particular problem. Could you talk a little bit about that and like why you couldn't see?
Yeah. So I'm a natural introvert. And so my journey to becoming one of Business Insider's top private bankers under 40 was not easy, right? You can imagine being a natural introvert. Mentors are telling me, hey, get out there, network. I mean, that's my job. Get out there, network, meet people, build relationships, help people. And I felt so much anxiety walking into a room full of strangers turns out I'm not alone, right? So recent Harvard Business Review or study showed that about a third of young people have that same anxiety. And then you have 9 out of 10 students that they avoid work-related events altogether. So it's a huge problem. And then you had COVID, which just kind of amplified this problem. And so basically we're using screens to get people off screens, help them navigate networking events more efficiently and confidently. And at the end of the day, yes, we are an app, but we're more than that. We're a community of people helping people, and you probably saw that with our gamification features, where we reward people for doing good, helping others. And that's been like a huge thing in my life. And I wanted to make a tool that helped people help others more easily and give back.
Yeah, to tell you about like my experience and the reason why I wanted to have you on the show. So I went to DEC and I spoke with some of the folks there and took a tour, and they told me about Dallas Startup Week. I was like, I can't wait to kind of experience it. A week had passed, and I get the notification on my calendar, hey, get ready for Dallas Startup Week. These are the sessions, blah, blah, blah. And one of the things that I like to do in any situation that I'm in is just like prepare and just like know what I'm, going to like
Absolutely.
expect. And as I kind of looked through all the information, I found your app, immediately signed up. And kind of like you said, there was a immediate level of like comfort. I don't know how to describe maybe in great detail, but it definitely, as opposed to going somewhere where you don't really know what's going to happen or the people that are going to be there, or if anyone's going to be there at all, because sometimes that's a thing, right?
Yes.
You just walk into like an empty conference.
Yeah, that's the worst.
It definitely gave me a little bit more confidence going into that week to meet people and kind of just learn and be free of this anxiety of like connecting and just if I see you, it's great to meet you. We matched in the app. The thing that really caught my eye, so just to give you a context about me.
Yeah.
So my wife and I, we met on Bumble.
Okay.
And, people, our millennials, our age, like everybody was on an app at one point in time trying to meet someone. And I just was so like, it was so familiar, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The way that you connect with people. So talk a little bit about like the decision to build it that way.
Yeah.
And how you've had like people come up to you or talk to you about like that specific match feature.
Well, just to hit on the part about like giving you familiarity walking into a room, and that's exactly what we're trying to do. We're trying to help people, like I said, navigate. But yeah, we wanted to give people cliff notes before they walk into those large conferences, right? So that they can be more purposeful and intentional, right? And not just walk up to someone and not really know what to say or immediately start talking about themselves, but like now they know others' objectives and goals, right? Because that's part of their profile, and they could say, oh, I saw you're looking for a job in, the tech industry, you should meet Jordan. Or, you can be a lot more purposeful, and you can help connect people, which at the end of the day is going to serve you really well, in the future. So that, I'm glad to hear that was your experience as well. Yeah, in terms of Bumble, it doesn't surprise me that you saw some similarities because Whitney Wolf is one of, someone that I look up to. Believe it or not, when she started Bumble, she actually wanted it to be a networking app. And, she got some big investors back then and they convinced her otherwise. But she's someone that I look up to because of her story, and it's a story of overcoming adversity, what she went through at Tinder, and then starting Bumble, which is now a multi-billion-dollar company. And so when we started Myngly, we think in the future we will have different modes, right? Friends, dating. But we wanted to start with networking for a couple different reasons. First, we feel like once you're known as a dating app, you kind of always have that taboo, and that's kind of what the issue is with Bumble Biz, if you've ever heard of that one.
Right. I know, I've heard of Bumble Biz, I've heard of Bumble BFF, I've heard they've come out with different types of things.
Exactly. But let's say you were on Bumble Biz and your wife sees you're on, they see the Bumble logo. What is she going to think you're on?
Of course,
the dating, right?
Right.
Yeah. So there's a lot of taboo around that. And so we wanted to start with networking, really focus on helping people with their careers, and growth. And then, maybe in the future we'll look at the other modes. Secondly, my background is all in, finance, and I'm out there networking all the time. I still have my day job, and so it's much easier to manage both, when I basically just built a tool to help me be more efficient. So it all kind of made sense, and then with Texas Young Professionals, they're telling me they need this tool for networking. So that's the reason we really focused on networking.
That's so interesting, and that's such a good point, right? Because I think a lot of people, they have to switch off their day job and then turn on to their thing that they're working on. You don't.
I don't.
You're a founder that is actually working on something that they have to use for
it's beautiful because I'm probably their first best user because I'm using it to network and try to find folks that could be good referral sources. We call them centers of influence. And so if it's not really helping me, or it's not, if it's just slowing me down, then I need to figure out how to fix that, right? But again, we listen to a lot of our users too, and get a lot of their feedback. So that was an early pivot. And, there will probably be a lot more too. And that's something that, you just kind of got to get used to.
I guess that's the nature of the business, right?
Yeah.
I want to ask you a little bit about, people always have the big thing, especially when it comes to B2C products, right?
Yeah.
'Cause you are looking for individual consumers to get on your app and begin using it in networking.
Yeah.
How did you get people on there in the first place? How did someone go find out about Myngly? Obviously, I understand the Dallas Startup Week was kind of a big deal for you, but just how are you always trickling in people and trying to get them to?
Well, we have like I said, you have to start with a community. Right. Otherwise, you'll put your app out there and it'll be crickets because there's so many apps on the App Store. And so for us, it was through Texas Young Professionals. We are the official networking app for TYP. So when you become a member, you have to download Myngly. It's the same thing with I think Tinder did the same thing at whatever school they launched with, right? They basically had a party and they made everyone that got on the bus download the app. So that's the first way. And now, since we have we have thousands of users on there now, others want to join and they want to see what all this noise is about Myngly. And so we get a lot of users through conferences, so that's another funnel, and then universities, like I said. So we're on the platform for several different universities in Texas, helping these students when they graduate, finding mentors, jobs, business partners, networking events. So a lot of people like the fact that we're, like you said, you felt very secure and comfortable. We give you a very local feel. And we've done that in a very purposeful way where we're only in Texas right now. People are applying from all over the place, but we're only letting folks in from Texas, not because we don't like other people from other states, but we need critical mass. And if we start letting people on in New York or California and they get on and they see that it's all Texas people, they might get a little upset, or that's only Texas events. So we're being very thoughtful about how we manage that. And there's about 10 million young professionals in Texas alone, so we got a lot of work to do. But we will start scaling state by state depending on demand.
And I guess that's a really good point as well, because there is from the aspect of networking, you have to have some locality with it.
Yeah.
And I think there's so many features that, screen to like, the GPS functionality within the tool, right?
Yeah.
Making sure that you can see events within a particular area, go see who like, signed up or who's attending, different things like that. So that's I'm assuming a big thing. I want to really touch on the partnership with the university. Did you just go like knock on the door of TCU or somewhere and just be like, hey, like help me out, or how do you even go? Like,
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of networking, a lot of like I said, putting others first, helping others connect with whoever's going to help them meet their goals and objectives, and everything kind of comes back around. But honestly, Texas Young Professionals has such a great brand in the area that we have a lot of organizations that are looking to work with us. So we were fortunate to have some of those inbound requests to sponsor some of our events and things like that, and put Myngly on their platform. But there was this event that was held where a lot of universities attended. I can't remember the name of the event, but I literally went around and talked to every booth and got their cards and emailed and followed up. And it's really about tenacity and following up. I call it bulldogging, but a lot of people, they'll send an email and then they're like, well, if they didn't respond, they must not want to work with me. I don't let it go until, I get like 3 no's. So.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
3 no's and then
Yeah.
Well, I guess if you, for anybody listening to this that doesn't want your thing, just follow up with the no's.
The first no, maybe they don't really know what they want. The second no, it's like, not now. And the third no, okay, I get it.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that has a lot to do with, your day job.
Yes,
and how
actually, that all comes from the day job.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna ask you a tough question.
Okay.
You hear, obviously, entrepreneurship is really popular right now.
Yeah.
So much so that like you have people getting on podcasts or television or different things and telling people like, for you to make this thing work, you got to quit your job, right?
Yeah.
And so I guess my question to you is, what will you need to see from Myngly for you to feel secure to make that jump to do it full time?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, it's funny how people kind of frown on that, right? But I was talking with my partner the other day, and I'm like, I'm not going to downplay it. It's a great thing. I mean, like I said, I'm mixing both worlds, and I am able to be successful in both. So it's not a bad thing. I'm able to continue to build Myngly and grow it organically. I think for us, what would it take? Raising capital, big VC, right, comes in. They're probably going to say, hey, you need to make a decision, or you need to hire someone that's going to be full time. At that point, I'll reassess everything. But at this time, like, they work well with each other, and there's really no need, and it helps us continue to grow. And a lot of times, businesses fail because you run out of money. You can't raise capital, and that's honestly why we're able to continue growing. Is because you gotta be able to overcome the test of time.
Right.
And if you can do that, you only fail when you give up, right? So at this point, I don't see that happening in the near future. Plus, I love my day job. I love what I do. I learn a lot, and and then with Myngly, it only makes me better at my day job. And so it's a tough question, but like I said, when we raise outside capital, it's going to be a question that I'll have to really think twice about.
And I definitely want to get to the outside capital part. The last question I'll have for you around like the operational part is how do you field? You just talked a little bit about like people will reach out to you. You get inbound communities or schools that want to sign up with you and use it on their different platforms. You have a day job, so like, like how do you field and operate in a way that like you're getting back to your customers in a timely manner? You're making sure that these bugs that may occur are getting fixed, and
Yeah.
all that stuff.
Well, luckily I have a great team. So our team is, I mean, it could be anywhere from like 4 to 6 people, just depending on how many developers we have working. I've got a great brand manager, project manager, Kenzie. She's been wonderful. She helps with all like the customer feedback, customer support, and among a lot of other things, but just because you mentioned that one. And then Nicola is our head of marketing, and he helps manage all of the inbound emails and all of that. And then for me, I'm not gonna downplay it. It's not easy, right? Like I have my day job, and then every evening and every weekend is dedicated to Myngly. So it's just help, building a great team and then putting in the work outside of the business hours.
Really quickly, how do you hire?
So it's all about networking. That's what I do every single day. And so finding really great people that believe in and are passionate about Myngly the same way I am, that's number one. But honestly, I've built this team through mentors. Like my mentors have introduced me to people who then have maybe introduced me to other people. And then, just like when you're out there networking, you meet others in different industries and professions, and then you find where you have gaps or where you have weaknesses, and you fill those.
Gotcha. And that's good to hear. I mean, I'm sure there, especially when you talk about you being user number one, and the passion of trying to make things a little bit more comfortable, a little bit easier for folks. You're likely hiring folks that are on the same, headed toward the same
exactly
that you are. So let's get into funding, right?
Okay.
So you got $100,000 from Google. Obviously, you have their support for a year. As you started shopping around to determine, okay, I want to build this app. How much were things going to cost you? Like, what did you learn about like development and?
Yeah. I would say if you're looking to develop an app and you get a quote from someone, multiply that quote times 5 or 10.
What?
And the time too that it will take. It's just and maybe that's something because I'm a non-technical founder. So like I did all the wireframes. I mean, I was the vision behind the wireframes, right? And I would just say make sure like when you're doing your wireframes, and maybe you could talk more to this. You're the technical guy, but kind of drawing out everything. Like, don't just assume things. Like, if you have a button, don't assume it's going to go somewhere, right? Like, so we ran into some of that, and I thought it would take less than a year, and it took us 2.
Wow.
So I would just allow for more time and allocate for more money.
Right, and I suppose the picture that you're painted when you're talking with folks is a little bit rosier than it actually is.
Yeah.
How do you escape the sales funnel? Because I think some people, especially when they get on the precipice of like, that starting line, they just want to go, right? Like you just want to be free and just like, okay, now I found some good folks. They've done these different things. They have a portfolio of companies that they've helped. How do you stay away from the kind of gimmicky sales part of development and really focus in on the things that you just need? Like going to like a dealership and like somebody's trying to sell you the beautiful Cadillac, but you need a Hyundai.
Are you talking about like new features
exactly,
and things like
yeah? How do you stay away from that?
So that's honestly challenging because like I said, we're always out there. We're always listening to our users, and I'm your first match when you get on Myngly. So. And I love it. People are giving me their feedback. They're chatting with me. So we're getting so much information. But you can't always go off of like the first time you hear something. And this may not be the right way, but I keep track of everything that I hear. And if I hear it over and over again, it's like, okay, this is priority, right? So you can't be everything to everyone. Remember like what your vision is, what your values are, your business model, all of that, and make sure you're sticking within that. And then if you're within that and you hear things over and over and over again, like it's probably time.
So we were both at Dallas Startup Week.
Yeah.
I learned so much about, I don't know if you attended a lot of sessions. I definitely did. The day that was really eye-opening for me was that Thursday session with all the venture capital folks, and how they talked a little bit about the things that they look at, in particular founders, applications that they're funding, and then where the state of the economy is today. And you have a really unique perspective because you're also in banking, so you understand that world. But I'm so curious to hear, like, 2024 and beyond. You're building a networking app. There are some cool features in there that are slick, but you're not building any like AI, right?
Yeah.
And
Not yet.
Not yet.
Well, we are actually building, but yeah.
But like right now, there is none, or maybe you have it on the roadmap to eventually get there.
Yeah.
It seemed as though people were saying, hey, like these are the, AI is what we're like looking for.
Oh, for sure.
And so anyone that's not really AI focused or building something that maybe reaches the idea of what a VC should be funding, may have a hard time like getting that funding. So how do you navigate this landscape economically, and then when you are ready to like present in front of someone, to what are the things that that you need before somebody slides that check to you?
Yeah, I mean, I can second that. I hear that all the time, AI, and I would add to that data science. So those are definitely the buzzwords right now. For us, luckily, we're at a good place. We're able to grow organically, and we'll continue to do that. And I think it's, like people say, timing is everything, right? Interest rates are super high right now, and so the VC environment is not great. And so, we feel like we continue to focus on pouring gas on our current business model, growing our user base, focus on the network, and listening to our users and adapting. And then if we can keep doing that, and then next year when interest rates will come down, hopefully the VC environment strengthens. And what we need to do to be in a place where we can have those conversations is turn on our monetization strategies. So you definitely have to show revenue. Gone are the days where anyone funds you for an idea, or even users, to be honest. And then also we'll be further with our AI capabilities too. So that's kind of our thought process right now.
You're thinking that, once you get to that place where the app is essentially, generating revenue, then you'll be able to take some real numbers to VC.
Absolutely. Because not only will we be able to show that, but we can also show what we've already done we already have a huge community. Right. We already have great retention. We have high engagement rates. And so all of that, but for us, it's not just about like who will give us money. It's about finding a good partnership and finding a strategic investor, not just capital. I think that's so important to find someone that believes in you, that has the same passion that you do, that can bring something other than money to the table. And that's what we will be looking for.
Is there anything else that you want to kind of touch on? Like, I know that you've been at this now a couple of years, and you're growing like crazy.
Yeah.
And obviously the app is doing really great numbers, like you said. But I'm sure you're still learning, right?
Yeah.
There's different things that you're trying to kind of understand daily, and try to be more efficient in the way that you're building this company. What would you say to someone who asks you, like, what are you learning, and what are the things that you feel like you need to have in order to be a successful founder?
I think you definitely need to have tenacity, to be patient. I know it's kind of cliched to say, but it is a marathon, not a race. When you see success stories, you only see the end result. You don't see like the journey and the years that it took to get there. So if you're going to start a company, be prepared to be in it for the long run. And what does that mean to be in it for the long run? How are you going to, continue to fund it for the long run? Like I talked about earlier, that you got to be able to withstand the test of time, because I think that's the biggest obstacle. Honestly, if you can do that, you can really get through anything else. So yeah, that would be my advice. And then, like I talked about how like ideas don't always come fully formed, and in our case, like they kind of came too formed. Like I had this big vision, but my vision was when there's millions of users on the app. So when we first developed, and we had no one on the app, it was like crickets, and it's like if you don't have critical mass and you're trying to help people find others on a map, you get on the app and there's like no value add. So we actually had to add that network tab in the middle, to help make sure that we are adding value to our users day one. So yeah, I think it'd just be prepared to pivot and learn from your clients or your users.
How do you expect to make money, if you don't mind me asking?
We have to make money. So we actually do, at this moment, we get sponsorships from organizations. And then when I talk about, monetizing the app, it will be a freemium model where like the basic features are free, and so you can still get a lot of value and help make connections and find events and build your career. But the more premium features will cost money. So that's kind of what we'll be doing in the future.
Thank you so much. Are you having fun doing this?
I am. I love it. And the best part is like hearing the success stories. So those are what really keep us going and keep us motivated.
Could you talk a little bit about it real fast before we wrap up?
So I mean, so many people have like found attorneys on there, right? Like they were trying to do trust and estate planning, and they found their attorney on there, or they were looking for to volunteer at a nonprofit, and they were able to find that through our filters. Business partners, investors. I mean, you name it. Like I've heard pretty much every story. I've even had someone get engaged on the app, but we won't talk about that one.
It's networking at its finest, right?
Hey, the thing about Myngly is that because we're using screens to get people off screens and meeting in person, the lines are blurred. So, I mean, anything could evolve. And so that's a beautiful thing.
Awesome. Well, Sara Doutt, thank you so much. We appreciate you coming on. Where can people find you, and how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so download us on any app store, so Google Play or Apple App Store. I created a code for this podcast. So if you use first dollar, all capital letters, no spaces, first dollar, you can get in without kind of going through the application process. And then follow us on any social media platform at Myngly app, MYNGLY app.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
A special thank you to Sara Doutt for joining us on today's episode. And remember, if you download the Myngly app and use the code FIRSTDollar, all lowercase, no spaces, you'll be able to skip ahead of the line. There was so much great information, and I'll attempt to try to link all of the references that Sara shared with us in the show notes. Otherwise, follow us on YouTube and let us know what you think. We'd love to hear from you. See you next time.